I want to start out with this issue of presidential morality. And I think the Stormy Daniels trial, or the election interference trial, to be more accurate, is emblematic of this. In fact, it's bringing this home to Americans in a way that, had this trial not happened, I think it would have been a real disservice, frankly. I mean, this is why, if nothing else, what this trial demonstrates is the damage that Eileen Cannon, Judge Cannon down in Florida, who has indefinitely postponed Donald Trump's trial for stealing national security documents from the White House and then lying to the FBI about them, or the trial in Judge Tanya Chutkan's courtroom in New York that that 4 Republicans on the Supreme Court, or at least 4 Republicans on the Supreme Court, have also delayed, at least until this fall, and perhaps beyond that. I mean, we'll see. They're furiously writing their opinions. The kind of damage that the Republicans on the Supreme Court and this Republican judge down in Florida are doing to our electoral system, but it's not just our electoral system, it's our democracy as a whole. And this is, I think, the really important thing. I mean, what we're learning, what we've learned today, or really in the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I guess it is now, with this election interference trial in New York City right now, is that Donald Trump hadn't even been married 2 years. I mean, in fact, it wasn't even a 1.5 years that he had been married when he had this affair with Stormy Daniels. It was just a few weeks after his wife gave birth to their youngest child, Barron. And it really highlights just a fundamental lack of respect for any of the rules of society. Now, it's real easy to kind of rant and be all moralistic about, a man having an affair. I'm not sure you could call this an affair, but exploiting an opportunity, whatever you want to call it. In my opinion, it's closer to rape, frankly. He blocked Stormy Daniels from leaving the room. She never, explicitly consented to having sex with him, but she didn't refuse. But I think that what it tells us is how entitled Trump feels. He really and truly believes that the rules of society that apply to all the rest of us don't apply to him. Most countries split the functions of head of state and head of government. The head of state in the United Kingdom, for example, is right now King Charles. It was Queen Elizabeth. The head of government is Rishi Sunak, the prime minister. In Israel, the head of government is the prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, but the head of state is the president, whose name is escaping me at the moment. That's how. What is it, Herzog? No, I don't know. In any case, and I don't know if it's most countries, but many countries do this. They split apart these functions. And the head of government, the prime minister typically, in some cases the president, is the person who basically is a bureaucrat, is the person who basically runs the day-to-day functions of government, gets things done, requires good administrative skills and a certain level of, fundamental honesty. But the head of state, that position requires a certain level of decency. I mean, it's why the Brits were so horrified when Prince Charles seemed to be, not the best husband to Diana, and maybe even having an affair with the woman to whom he's now married. You're the head of state. You're supposed to be the moral example for the country. Here in the United States, we merge those two functions in our president. The president is both the head of state and the head of government. And Donald Trump failed in both. As head of government, he was a completely incompetent administrator. I mean, for example, COVID. We had more Americans died of COVID, more people died of COVID in the United States than in any other developed country in the world. And frankly, on a per capita basis, more Americans died of COVID than in any other country in the world, period, with, I believe, 2 exceptions. And you know, they're, very desperately poor countries. Why is that? Because he was both malicious and incompetent, but a lousy head of government. But I'm concerned with his position as head of state. George Washington is sometimes referred to as the father of our country, the father of America. And what that says, he could have held on to the presidency until he died. He could have been kind of a king for life if he wanted. But he wanted to set an example. He left the presidency after 2 terms and set an example that was kept right up until the 1940s. And FDR arguably only violated that standard, that precedent, because he felt that the United States was experiencing so much of a crisis at the time. So here we have now a head of state. Here we have a head of state who is, basically an immoral or amoral person. Now, we have had people like that before. We had Richard Nixon, but we got rid of him. We had Andrew Johnson. Congress actually changed the composition of the Supreme Court so that Andrew Johnson couldn't appoint anybody to the Supreme Court. They passed a law to reduce the number of members of the Supreme Court. They realized what an immoral man he was. We had Andrew Jackson, with the Trail of Tears and all that kind of stuff. So, we had a few immoral leaders, but none, zero. Even Richard Nixon didn't suck up to foreign dictators. None of them trash-talked our foreign allies. None of them stole things from the White House. None of them shared our national security secrets with foreign governments in ways that led to our spies and our allies' spies being burned, like Trump did in the first weeks in the White House when he invited the Russian foreign minister and ambassador into the White House and gave them the name of one of the top spies who was keeping track of what the Russians were up to in Syria, leading to that spy being burned. Now, he was an Israeli spy, but he was also reporting to us, which is how Trump knew about him. I mean, none of them ever did any of those things. None of them tried to overturn an election. So the point that I'm making is that as the moral leader of America, the president sets this example. I mean, 18-year-olds who will be voting this year have pretty much never known any other presidents than Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And many of them seem to think that Joe Biden is an anomaly, when actually he's the norm, a decent man who's getting things done. And you've got this whole, the whole Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, this whole, youth movement coming up saying, yeah, Donald Trump, he's our example. Yeah, let's rape some more women. And yeah, women shouldn't even vote. I mean, there's this movement in the Republican Party to end the 19th Amendment that gave women the vote in 1920. My point is that the moral damage that Donald Trump has done to this country in the last 9 years, and arguably even before that, when he started, his birther stuff about Obama, it started in 2008, just being openly racist. The moral damage that Donald Trump has done to this country is going to take a generation to repair, and maybe longer than that. And, of course, if he gets back into the White House, the moral damage will probably be something from which we certainly won't recover in my lifetime. And maybe not in the lifetime of even, my grandchildren. We'll see. But, nobody's talking about this, and I wanted to bring it up. I think it's really important. The moral leadership of a president is actually important.